Because I told him, Father, I want to run away to the forest. I'm like, can I be a hermit? Like, can I just run away from society and just like pray the rest of my life? He tells me, well, I don't have a forest, but I have a jungle. And I'm like, oh boy, here it goes.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Café con Santos, a show where we promote the rosary, reflect on the life of the saint, and share many journeys. With me today is Ricardo Gonzalez. Recently, maybe not too recently, got back from a mission trip in Belize. So,
It wasn't that recently.
how long ago was it?
I got back in May.
How long was that?
That's like 4 months ago.
4 months is recent. In God's time, that's like nothing.
I guess.
Well, point is, we have Ricardo here, and he's gonna be sharing a little bit about his journey in the faith, and we're gonna be talking about Augustine. So, before we get started, though, I gotta ask you the most important question.
Oh, I think I know what this question is.
Are you ready?
I mean, I don't know if I'm ready, but ya que. I mean, like, I guess you're gonna have to ask.
All right. Do you like coffee?
In truth? The truth?
The truth.
Okay.
And nothing but the truth.
Nothing but the truth? I don't really like coffee.
Oh, no. Okay.
I don't do coffee, dude. I've never done coffee. I think it's partly a lot of things. My mom never let us drink coffee when we were kids, and so we didn't drink coffee. I like coffee flavored things, but coffee itself, I find it too bitter. It's kind of strong, and I've never desired to pursue coffee.
So it was like kind of like a taboo, like, oh no, we got to stay away from the coffee.
Yeah, I guess maybe a taboo, and then it's like the taboo grew into like, I'll admit this to the public so that they know where I'm coming from more honestly. A little bit of pride because coffee.
I don't need coffee.
Because I don't need coffee. I'm also more legitimately a high energy person, so.
So you way hyper when.
Yeah.
You get all that.
Honestly, I don't know, but I don't need to know. I don't want to know.
All right.
Does that make any sense? Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with drinking coffee.
No. And that's, we make this question. Some people say yes. Some people say no.
Yeah.
I think, and this season, it's been a mix of yes, no, sometimes. So, different question. And I like coffee. Am I right here? But you don't like coffee.
No, I don't drink coffee.
That's okay. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your trauma story.
It's not a trauma story. It's just
fun fact.
Fun fact. I don't drink coffee.
Okay. So let's get started with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for the gift of life. Lord, we ask that you send your Holy Spirit to be with us. Help guide our conversation. Help the listeners to follow what we say. That maybe one message that is shared today may be able to touch their hearts. We pray, Lord, that you protect the technology that we're using so that the demons don't interfere with them. And we ask, Lord, that overall this moment of faith sharing would be an opportunity for us to grow in our deeper love for you, Lord. We ask all of this in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right. I call this segment Ask Ricardo. I'm going to ask you
this is Ricardo.
Yeah, so,
okay, sorry.
Are you used to being called Ricardo or Ricky, or what do you go by?
See, that's the problem. I don't have a preference.
Okay.
You can call me however you wish.
All right, so we might switch it here and then throughout the podcast, but we're going to call this segment Ask Ricardo. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you just have to answer as honestly as possible. First question. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Superpower? You know, sometimes I've thought about this, but I think it's really simple. Super strength.
if you could have coffee, or let's say, I'm not a coffee
You can say
guy,
coffee,
but
or whatever.
let's say, if you could have, are you a bubba tea person?
I've begun to like black tea.
All right, if you could have black tea, one saint, who would you pick?
One saint?
You have to pick one.
That's a tough one. I think two saints come to mind immediately. Saint John Paul II.
Okay, John Paul II. Are you a dog or a cat person?
Dog. I not against cats. Like I would own a cat, but dog.
What set of mysteries do you enjoy the most in praying the rosary?
It's a tough question. I'm not sure. Sometimes it really just depends. Sometimes I like to say the sorrowful mysteries. Sometimes because I tend to understand them more. But then I've been praying them recently, and I don't know if I thought I understood it all. So maybe the sorrowful mysteries.
Okay. If you were stranded on an island, what 3 items would you want to have?
Tres cosas.
3 things.
Nada más.
3 things.
A rosary. A hatchet. And a pot. Like a cooking pot.
Were you always Catholic?
Up until I was baptized. Yeah, sure. I stopped being smart. Yeah. I was always Catholic. I was baptized as a little kid.
Yeah, our previous guest, she said, I was not baptized before I was not Catholic. I've always been. I'm not the only one to share that. Right. So, what is one thing that most people do not know about you?
Most people? I wonder what most people means. That don't know about me, right? I mean, the things that people don't know about me are things I don't share with people, period. So, but I have a YouTube channel, and a lot of people know that, but a lot of people like you didn't know that. I had a YouTube channel when I was in high school, and I had like 70 subscribers. All of them were pretty much high school friends or friends from church. There you go.
And are those videos still up?
I sure hope they're not. I remember I made my first channel private, and the second one I think might be still public.
And
so there was 2 channels.
You definitely don't want to go check them out right now.
No, they were. I was 15, 16, and it was not. It was cringy, and I don't want to talk about it.
Okay. What is your dream job?
I wish I could be So perhaps a long time ago there was no such thing as architecture school, in the sense that you learned very differently. You know, if you know what I'm saying. Like master builders were people that spent lives studying this, how to build, right? If I could have any job in the world, it would be to be a builder and think like an architect and an engineer, but understand what it's like to be the mason. Because he can be both the mason and the architect and the engineer.
So pretty much be responsible for how it looks, how it's built,
and building.
Build it. What is one of your favorite movies?
One of my favorite. There's a lot of really good movies out there, like Cantinflas, Pedro Infante, and then we have a whole lot of other movies. Pick one, right?
This one.
El Padrecito by Cantinflas.
What was that movie about?
Cantinflas is a Mexican actor from the Mexican golden age of cinema. For those of you who are listening who don't know who I'm talking about, his name is Mario Moreno. Anyways, the movie is about this priest who gets sent to a small town because there's a very old priest who should be retiring soon, but the old priest doesn't want to retire because he's been there his whole life in this little small parish. And Cantinflas, his character, El Padre Sebastián, goes around the town causing good havoc.
Good movie. I've heard about it. Never seen it, but
You should watch it.
And last question: if you could be patron saint of something, what would it be?
I don't know that question. I don't know if I can answer that question, Ricky. I have to answer? Dude, I don't know. Michigan.
Okay, the patron saint of Michigan. Well, thank you for that segment of Ask Ricardo. So, can you now just start to share with us a little bit about your journey in the Catholic faith? Maybe your upbringing, and then a little bit about where you are right now.
Sure. So Ricky's one of his early questions was, were you always Catholic? And I guess the answer is like, are you a cradle Catholic? Right? And the answer to that question is yes. My parents are both immigrants from Mexico. My father passed away about a year and a half ago, so may my father rest in peace. But my parents were both immigrants from Mexico, and 90+% of Mexico is Catholic, at least nominally, and I was too. Thankfully, I will say that my parents both did teach me the faith, and not just face value faith, but what the faith was really, right? With my father's passing, I confronted a lot of things, but one of the things I realized it, and that I'm ever so grateful for, is that my parents gave me my inheritance already, and that is the faith, right? And that's how I see it. Because my father passed, you deal with things like, burying your father and dealing with the things he left behind, materially speaking. But then I realized, and I had already begun realizing it, and I already sort of knew it, but I put it in those terms after my father passed, is that my parents already gave me my inheritance in the faith. And so throughout my whole life, I've always believed in God. I've always had the privilege of knowing the truth about reality, because not everybody has that privilege. I know it's a privilege, and I know it's a gift, right? Sometimes people say, yeah, I've always been Catholic. I never strayed away from the church. But, and that's true. And that's true for me. But I also I've realized that's almost a miracle in and of itself. Not exactly, not strictly speaking. But, so now, and I've passed through different times of turmoil in my own life, right? Sinful things that you have had to grow out of and overcome, and pains and anguishes that I'm still overcoming, injuries that I'm still overcoming, spiritually speaking. And I'm only 22, and a lot of us are like that. And it's like, that's just part of everyone's story. And it's part of everyone's story who's in the faith and outside the faith, right? But with the faith, I have found that I can lean on God. When I remember to do that, I lean on God, and He helps me, right? So right now, in my faith, I would say I'm a young Catholic, right? I'm a young Catholic, and I don't have my brain washed, and I love my faith, and I would be one day hopefully willing to share more and to do more. And I'm trying, but like I said, I'm young. So I'm in those steps of helping in my parish with my youth group in small ways or in bigger ways, and doing what I can, like coming with Ricky to do a podcast. So that's a sort of summary, if you will, of a little bit about my faith, where it comes from, and what it's like. That makes any sense.
So you said that you received that inheritance child. What can you tell us about those early years as a young man, city of Detroit, practicing? I don't know your experience, but like, was your experience different, would you say, than that of friends or the people that you hang with?
1,000%.
Also,
this is more detail, but I guess we got time, right? So like, that's what a podcast is for, right? So my parents were both, how do I put this? They never stopped practicing their faith either. Even if, maybe they went through their own times of doubt, struggle, and a number of different things like we all go through, right? And I'm not saying they never didn't go to mass, but my mother became a catechist when I was very young. So I was always at catechism, whether it was in her class or in other classes, or in other classes. And so I was always in catechism. And then I have an uncle. I was hoping I wouldn't have to say this, but the context of my life needs me to say this, is I have a uncle that's a priest. I won't tell you who he is because he's in Detroit. And a lot of you are listening and I don't want you to know. But my point is, when you have an uncle...
Why don't you want him to know?
It's like, how do I... because when people find out, they treat you different. Right? They do treat you different. And I don't... And sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing. And eventually people forget. Like, they don't care anymore. You know?
It's your humbleness. You're like, oh no.
It's like, it's not a big deal, but it does affect the way I grew up. So my point is, my uncle is a priest, and
who we may have on the show one day. We just won't say who it is. But maybe. I can't promise that.
Yeah, that would be hard to get him on the show. I would say, but growing up close to the faith and seeing a lot of those witnesses is not something everyone has, right? Not everybody's mom is a catechist. Not everybody's uncle's a priest. And not everybody's family is always as involved in their parish as our family is. A lot of families are. But not all families, right? I would say the majority of Catholic families aren't necessarily as involved in our parishes as we've been. I was an altar boy from the time I was, like, consistently an altar boy from the time I was maybe 10 to when I was 19. So I spent like 9 years serving as an altar boy, you know, and that kept me pretty close. Because you're close to the mass, you're close to the sacraments, you're close to priests, plural. You're close to people who are close to God, right? And that's not something everyone has the privilege of experiencing. Because I've met a lot of people who are Catholic, but X, Y, and Z, right? Some of them are close to the faith, but it's not the same level of sort of practical, I would say practical involvement in the matters of the practical aspect of the faith, if that makes any sense, right? And so that's the answer to the question you asked. Sort of how that journey was. So like as a young man, I was close to the faith. I was taught truths very early on. So like I remember, and I'll share this as an example, two things. My father telling me the story of the martyrs of Mexico as a young kid, and that really, really, really stuck with me. And it's always, of the Cristeros from the Cristero War, because my father's from a small town in Jalisco called Jalostotitlan, which is where El Padre Toribio Romo, Santo Toribio Romo, is from and is buried there. And so that story always stuck with me and has always sort of kept me firm in my faith, if you will, because it's like, if those young men and boys, even like San Joselito Sanchez del Rio, were capable of giving their life, why can't I? Why can't I? I should appreciate what they did, right? The second thing is always being taught the truth. I had, for catechists when I was a kid at St. Gabriel's, I had the Sisters of Charity. And they are the humblest people you will ever meet. Almost like pretty much hands down, right? I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right, Ricky?
Yeah.
And I remember one lesson in particular, and it always sticks with me. It's just an example of the things that have sort of fostered my understanding of the faith. The sister told us, everyone has the same value as everyone else, and everyone's value is infinite, right? And that's true. And it's like, well, duh, Ricky, that's true. But not everybody gets told those things explicitly, right?
And I mean, like when you, for example, we live in Detroit. I mean, when you see someone begging on the streets with like, really dirty, and then you see a person
driving an Escalade, or right by them,
or even someone walking past by them. Let's say it's something beautiful, like it's a dad and a little child, and you put them all together. Essentially, what she's saying is equal value.
Yes. So that stuck with me. I mean, I've always remembered that lesson and the lessons they taught me, for example, about the Holy Trinity, which are sort of, you'll never understand the Trinity, right? But the lessons, like very simply, God and the Father, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, persons, one God. And you're a little 8-year-old, like, wait a minute, Jesus is the Son of God. Yeah. Sister, yes. Jesus is also God. Yes. And I remember kind of looking at her like, what do you mean? And so those things stick with you, and not everybody remembers those things that they were taught. And I hope probably a lot of us do, right? You just don't actively recall those things, but they're in their memory. And if you look through your memories, you'll find things like that.
Do you remember what she responded to that by? What do you mean? Or was that more like you just thought?
I think that was like, I thought it like, wait, what do you mean? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, you're 8 years old. I'm like, how could I be my...
1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 equals 1?
Yeah, like 3 does not equal 1. Yeah. It's like, wait. I'm my father's son. How could I also be my father? I'm like, what do you mean, sister? But that was just a little... I remember like, how do I put this? It's so funny. I like to say I was like trying to grab onto something that I couldn't. As like an 8-year-old, I was trying to grab onto an idea that I couldn't grab onto. And I thought I had it and then it would like disappear. Like I would grab it and then it would disappear, right? It was really weird. I'm like, I have that very marked in my memory because of that.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I think most of us, like, when we're taught that, yeah, I don't fully understand it, but okay. But then, like you said, you start to try to understand it, like, wait, how is that possible? And then there's a lot of people who attack the faith, like a lot of Muslims who will use that argument, like, how is that even possible? But I think it's important to remember that when it comes to the study of God and who He is, we can understand aspects of it. Not in this life, fully understand everything. I think even the fact that you as a child was getting like little glimpses of fullness of truth is like a grace in itself. So
this is why I kind of say it's like, I kind of consider it a little bit, not miraculous, but just God's hand really working in our lives to sort of like show us little things. At least that's why I say it. I'm very fortunate.
Now, we are, I think, a couple generations apart in terms of growing up in the city and going to school. I don't think a lot has changed in terms of education, but what can you tell us about, I guess, your experience in high school? Like, were students like, did they share the same beliefs? Did you ever come in conflict because of your faith?
How old are you?
I am.
Sorry that I go.
I am 30 years old right now.
Okay, dang, you're a whole. You're a handful of years older than me. You're not old. It's just okay. Yeah, yeah. When you're like a whole generation. What are you talking about, Ricky? I'm like, I felt like we were in the same group. Oh no, you're a millennial. I'm sorry.
Wait, what are you considering?
I'm not a millennial, dude.
You're a Gen
I am Gen Z by a
Gen Z?
landslide. There are some people who are more borderline, like Arturo Medina. He's more borderline between you and me, but
he was in the same youth group.
Yeah, he was
your leader?
Yeah, he was that youth group leader, and I'm one of his youths from way back when.
One of his disciples.
That's a strong word, but sure. Sure.
But anyways, we'll get back to that later.
Yeah.
What tell us about high school?
High school? I miss high school, but mostly because I miss my friends. I'm always curious about how they're doing. Because I didn't have a phone until I was 18. So that's a blessing. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a blessing. But it was also like a curse at the same time because I wasn't involved with my friends in the same ways they were always in tune with everything. And I was always a little out of tune about what was happening on social media and stuff. So in high school, I won't name the place I went to high school out of prudence, but it was strange, right? It's like, it was supposed to be a place where people could express themselves more freely, but there was a lot of people there. When you're young, our generation doesn't matter how Catholic the population of our generation is in terms of whether or not they're Catholic. Everybody there had the variety of people there was crazy. And that's just normal, I think, for our generation.
What do you mean by crazy?
You had people who went to Mass every Sunday of their own free will, and you had people who went to Mass every Sunday because people made them go, and then you had people who never went to Mass, period. Right? And we're all Catholic. Or a lot of my classmates weren't Catholic, but like Christians who knew they were Christians, but didn't really know what that meant. And the world infiltrates everything now. So it doesn't matter where you went to high school, I think. Even if you went to a good high school, the world and the devil and the flesh were everywhere. and all of my friends and myself. And but high school was fun. Like I had fun in high school. I did learn a lot in high school, like academically speaking. So I miss learning. Because now I'm out of school. I just graduated with an associate's, but I miss learning, and that's what high school was like for me. It was personal, like more personally speaking, if I can say, right? It was a hard time. It was a hard time, but not because of high school, but just because of what was going on personally. Going through the growing pains of being a teenager, right? And so a lot of beautiful things happened then, a lot of painful things happened then, and it's just like, it's not like high school's fault. It's my high school years, but it's not like that happened because I went to high school. If that makes any sense. So like, I had a YouTube channel in high school. I was a depressed artist and poet in high school. I didn't look like one, but I was.
So you made poems.
Oh, dude, I love poetry.
Do you remember any of those poems that you could share from when you were in those times?
Oh, dude, off the top of my head, I'd have to like go back and like scrounge up lost scraps of paper that I would write poetry on. Shoot, dude, nah. Sometimes I go back and I read my poems and I'm like, dang,
I wrote that.
I wrote that. Like that was me. Like and sometimes, and not sometimes because it's bad, but just because like, oh wow, that's where I was. That's deep. Like, oh dang, I was feeling things and I was also, I like to say the word artistically inclined because I'm not a dedicated artist, but so that all those things that I was going through in high school fueled a lot of creative, found their vents in creativity. YouTube was probably one of them. Poetry. I love to draw. I still do. I just, like I'm saying, I'm not an artist because an artist is someone who does art, who practices, right? So it's not really what I do anymore. Every now and then, sit down and draw things because I want to, because I like to. I would like to be a better artist. Turn to that because that was good. I think even if it was fueled by pain or anxiety or whatever it was, I do think that was good.
So then, like jumping after high school, you said you recently got your associates. Essentially, this is. Feel free to talk as much as you'd like about this or as little, but what can you tell us about your experience with the Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity? So when you went on the mission trip.
Okay, first I'd like to say for those listening at home, Ricky, I didn't go on a mission trip.
You didn't go on a mission trip?
No, I did not go on a mission trip. I think I need to be more explicit. I think people who know me need to know that I did not go on a mission trip. All right, my mom sort of said that, and so like she's like,
"No, mi hijo, fue a una misión en Belize." Is that how it went?
That's not what happened, dude. All right, after high school, I'll be candid. Most of my adolescence, I thought about being a priest. Right, I shared I was really, I was close with my uncle, who was a priest, and close with the priests, and close to the church, and served a lot as an altar boy. And when you see the mass, when you are with priests like that, and by like that I mean really close to them, at least in proximity, you see what priests do and you see what priests are, and you learn what that means, and that's a very beautiful thing.
Versus what people hear on the news.
Yes, versus what you think a priest is, either like what you said, by what you're fed by the media, or what you think a priest is based on cultural context. Like, that's not always accurate. So anyways, I always thought, actually since I was like 8, like when my uncle got ordained, I always kind of thought like, wouldn't that be cool? And then as I got a little older, I'm like, no, that's not cool at all. Because you realize what you're thinking and you're like, oh no, that's not cool, dude. And I have shared this to certain levels with a number of people. And now I share, I guess, with a lot of people. I don't know how many people listen to your channel. But if you're a priest out there listening to this, or you work for the diocese, do not reach out to me, please. I guess you could, but. So when I graduated high school, there was a number of other contextual things that kept me from going to college. One is I didn't want to go, like legitimately, I didn't want to go to school, because I didn't know what to study, and I didn't have a reason to study. If that makes any sense. I didn't have a reason to go to college. I applied to 6 schools, 6 universities. I got into 5 of them. I guess I could have applied to more, but I didn't. I only applied to 6 because I was required to apply to 6, right? I applied to Steubenville, which is where I thought I wanted to go. For those of you in Catholic circles, you all know that the University of Steubenville is one of the, if not the Catholic university in the country. I got in. And I will say that's not a big feat. Their application was the easiest application I did. So if you're thinking about going to Steubenville, apply.
Here's the college pitch.
Yeah, like apply. Apply, because if you're thinking about it, you can't really discern if you're not actually discerning, and by that you have to like be applying. And if they don't admit you, then that's a sign that no. At least could be a sign, right? So I didn't know what to do after high school. Thought I wanted to be a priest. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't have any career path in mind, anything to look forward to. I had no direction, right? I was like, graduated high school, and I'm like, that's it? It's over? There goes everything that I ever knew that directed my life. School was like the only thing that ever existed to me, right? Because that's what it's like until you realize the whole world is a lot bigger than just school. So I didn't go to school. Took a year off. Call it off. Honestly, I just decided not to go to school, and then I decided to go back to school a year later. So I had a gap year.
The famous gap year.
The famous gap year, although I didn't take it as a gap year. I thought I was just quitting school. So I had a couple of jobs here and there. I won't say what I did. Not because it's bad, but just matter. I'll say one of the jobs I had, I worked at the Salvation Army. And that was an experience. I will not work there again. If you're thinking about working there, go ahead and work there. I personally will not work there. It wasn't bad. It's just, it was rather boring. But I worked at the Salvation Army, and I did a lot of weird things for no good reason, right? And eventually I got a little not desperate, but I remembered the words of a priest that I knew, an invitation to seek spiritual direction with him. Father Tony Blunt from Holy Redeemer.
Shout outs to Father Tony.
Really good priest. I call him, and I hope this sticks after this podcast, I call him, amongst the people I know closely, El Padre Blancanieves.
El Padre Blancanieves.
Have you seen the man's hair? It's white as snow. The man has not a single like black hair on his head.
All right, so just let's say 30 years from now, 40 years from now, when he's gonna go into that canonization process, they're gonna make a famous movie. Padre Blancanieves.
Yes, man. Yes. I sure hope so. And he's like, he had invited me a while ago. If you ever want to talk about anything, Ricardo, just let me know. And so I reached out to him. And I talked to him like, Padre, esto, el otro, X, Y, Z. Me dice, Ricardo, would you like to go on mission? So the Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity. I don't know how familiar your viewers are with the Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity.
We've had Sister Kateri on one of our episodes.
I think I saw that, yeah.
Feel free to share who they are. Okay,
so I don't know much about their history, but the Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity, SOLT short, is the newer religious order, very new actually, founded very recently. A lot of the people in SOLT remember the founding fathers of SOLT, or knew them personally, right? Like Father Jim Flanagan, amongst others, John McHugh. Apparently they were all Irish, or Irish-blooded. They're a missionary society, so they go out into places that have, they term it this way, and I think it's the best way to put it, great apostolic need, right? And so you're like, why are they in Detroit? Because we don't have priests. Because we need sisters, and we need people like them. They're a great help. I think I love the fact that they're here. I love the fact that they're at Holy Redeemer Parish, and they have nuns in a convent. You know, they have a school, they have parish, and they have a number of priests, and now they have a parish family, so they're at St. Gabriel's, St. Cunegunda. Father Tony Blunt invited me to be a missionary. SOLT sends lay missionaries from places Wyoming. Had a friend go to Wyoming. Esmeralda Orozco. She went. It was Wyoming. No, North Dakota. My bad. North Dakota. They have a mission there. My friend Esmeralda Orozco went there on mission. She went on mission. They have a mission in Belize, which is in Central America. Like, Ricardo, would you like to go? Because I told him, Father, I want to run away to the forest.
Where you just were at?
Yeah, that's where I was at in life, bro.
No, I just want to go to the forest.
I'm like, can I be a hermit? Like, can I just run away from society and just like pray the rest of my life? Pray the rest of my life. And so he tells me, well, I don't have a forest, but I have a jungle. And I'm like, oh boy, here it goes. He tells me about the mission and what they do. They teach at a high school and at a little junior college in this small town on the border of Guatemala, on the Belizean side of the border. And I didn't really like that idea. To be honest, like
I'm just trying to go to the forest, Father.
Father, I live in Michigan. The forest is 2 hours away from here. If I go far enough north, there's just bears and cougars, dude. I don't need to go to Belize. But he puts me in contact with a priest down there in Penque Viejo del Carmen, the town. Like, Ricardo, you don't have a college education. No. Most of the missionaries here are teachers, and to be a teacher in Belize, you have to have a bachelor's. You could be a missionary, but wouldn't be allowed to be a teacher, and then we could maybe make it work. And then he mentioned the school. Like, maybe you want to study? I don't know, maybe it sounds like you need to go to school. Maybe you could study here and you could be a missionary at the same time. And he talked to me about the school. And this sounds a little crazy, which is why it's obvious that this was God's hand working. He says, well, the school's name is John Paul II Junior College. Small little junior college in the town. Mostly designed for the people of the town. And in the surrounding villages and in the surrounding other towns, right? And so I went to study. I did not go on mission because the missionaries, at least technically speaking, do something totally differently than I do. I went to school, and so I went to school, and I earned my associates in liberal arts. I read a lot of Aquinas. I read a lot of Aristotle, Plato, Descartes, Augustine, Athanasius, you name him, I probably read from him. At least a little something. Not a whole lot, but maybe a little something. I did that after high school.
For how many years?
So I took a gap year, meaning to take it. And then a year afterwards, it was like June, July, I talked to Father Tony, talked with Father Bo in Benque through a Zoom call. And in August, I was gone. One-way trip to Belize, never looked back. That's not a joke. I bought a one-way ticket. You can't buy a one-way ticket anymore because Belize has changed their laws and you have to buy a two-way ticket because they don't want you staying stuck in their country. I learned that the hard way at the airport when I was going back for my second year. I did 3 years. I earned my associates over the course of 3 years. That's a real gap year. Between my third semester and my fourth semester, I had a whole gap year. That was the semester that my father passed away. And so I came home, helped bury my father, helped take care of everything that goes with that. And I stood. Are you sure? I stayed with my family for a year. Right. So I was 2 weeks into my fourth semester when I had to come home. And so I worked it out with the school. They're like, well, you already paid your tuition for the fourth semester. We will retain that fully paid tuition. Come back a year from now. You'll finish. You won't have to pay your tuition again. Right? Because sometimes when you withdraw from school, they keep the tuition because you're halfway through a semester. Right? But I was 2 weeks. So they were like, no, you can come back. So I went back. This past January, right? Time flies. Dang, I was in Belize not too long ago. Dang. And I finished my last semester in Belize. So, and through the course of those 4 years post high school, I had a crazy college experience. Right. I call it that because even though I wasn't in college the whole time, those 4 years are like your college years, right? And so I have friends who went to school and did 4 years in college and who are maybe still are in college because they're still studying. I don't know. I haven't kept up with a lot of my friends, but those are my 4 college years, wild and crazy. And at the end of those 4 years, I have an associate's in liberal arts from an unaccredited school in Central America with a concentration in business. So,
Oh, come on, man. You're telling me you weren't a missionary?
I was not a mission. Not
You had. Okay, let me ask you this. Wait, look. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Father Tony himself says, "Want to go on a mission trip to Belize?"
Yes.
Went to Belize.
Yes.
By default, does that not mean that you went on a mission trip to Belize?
No, I went to school, and if by,
because like here's the thing, you weren't just studying there, were you?
No.
What else were you doing there?
Playing basketball. What do you think I was doing? Eating food, trying to feed myself. You know how hard it is to feed yourself when your mother's cooked for you your whole life?
All right, so were you doing any ministry work, any type of?
Once. Yes, I helped the catechism.
Right.
Technically. Okay. I'll say the truth. Nothing but the truth. Everyone is a missionary. No matter where you are, whether or not you go to a different side of the continent. Right? Ricardo, you're a missionary here in Detroit. You are living a missionary trip. The trip is through this world. Right? So in those terms, yes, I was a missionary. In the more technical terms of I went on a missionary trip with SOLT, the answer is no, because they have missionary trips and missionary programs, and I was not a part of that. But in the wider definition of what a missionary is, sure. Like everyone else should be, I was a missionary in Benque.
Fair enough. You were kind of like a foreign exchange student.
Yeah, I was a lot more like that. Yeah. Actually, let's just say it like that. I was a foreigner. I was an international student. It was so weird because Benque Viejo del Carmen es un pueblo muy hispano. Okay? Muy hispano. It's the Hispanic part of Belize. The north part of Belize and the west part of Belize, where I was, the west, are Hispanic places. The north because it touches Mexico. And mostly, this is my understanding, the Hispanics in the north of Mexico are descendant of Mexican people who have, for whatever reason, made their way to Belize. And in Western Belize, there's a lot of Hispanics from Guatemala, El Salvador. Y hay gente que dice, por ejemplo, en el pueblo de San Ignacio, en Santa Elena, that their relatively immediate ancestors are from Michoacán. So I felt like I fit in to a certain extent, right? I wasn't Belizean, but I felt like I fit in. So the international student being international was weird. Because I felt like I was not that international because I felt like I fit in. But then I realized I didn't. But yes, I was a lot more like a foreign exchange student.
Which, I think it's a pretty cool thing because a lot of people in Detroit, I would say students, they'll either go to Wayne State, Henry Ford Community College, some go to Michigan State, some
MSU,
go to Steubenville.
I have a high school classmate who went to Steubenville, if I'm not mistaken.
But to be honest, I think you're the only one that I know that has gone to a completely different country to study.
To study?
Which I think that's a pretty big gift.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I had the support of a lot of people. My father, monetarily, I had a lot of monetary support. My father. I rediscovered. I'll put it vaguely, just because I want to be prudent about other things. I had a sponsor for certain things when I was in high school, like a money person, good Catholic person who was helping me with things. And I discovered that they had a scholarship for if you had been with them, like as one of their sponsorees when you were in high school, they continued to sponsor you if you were still in college, right? So they were always helping you, whether or not, like whatever stage in school you were. And they helped me, right? My father helped me. I had savings of my own, praise God. Yeah, it was a big gift. the word you used was gift, and that is the perfect word. It wasn't freed, I'll tell you that much. But it was a gift.
And what can you tell us? You kind of gave a summary of Belize, but like overall, what's it like for? Because you said you essentially before you got there, you were like, I just want to go to the forest.
Yeah. And
now you're in a completely different country, people you don't know, but you have the soul community, I assume. Like, what was that like?
It was okay. Be honest, right? We're keeping it honest.
But the truth.
Nothing but the truth. That like your tagline?
No, that just seems to be the theme for today.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Okay. I thought it might have been your whole Café con Santos. No, nothing but the truth.
Here in Café con Santos, what we say is pray the rosary, pray the rosary, pray the rosary.
Right. Yes. I did know that. Pray the rosary, pray the rosary, pray the rosary. What was your question?
So what was it like being in Belize in those years?
Be funny. First, I'll be funny. Okay? It was hot. Like really hot. Like it never stopped being hot.
And are you a cold or a hot guy?
Brother, I love Michigan. I mean, how do I put this? The summer's pleasant. Winter is hard. I understand that. But when it's Christmas and it's 90 degrees outside, something feels wrong, you know?
Where's the snow?
Where's the snow? Like, where is my pine tree covered in snow? I guess that's just an effect of me growing up here. It was hot. So that's no joke, actually. That like it's a joke, but it gets hot. It gets to be 105 degrees and you still go to school. You know, it's 100 degrees, 103 degrees in the middle of the afternoon, 3 o'clock, and you have to be in class and there's no air conditioning and it's hot. That's not a joke.
This described a lot of Detroit public school. No. But anyways.
Yeah, but Detroit public school is just like, it hits 90 and they like 95 and they want to cancel classes. I get it. It's true. There's no AC. Those places are stuffy. Like, I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't compare to 105 degrees, dude. Okay. And it's like, there's nowhere to hide from the... But anyways, so it was hot. There were spiders the size of the palm of my hand. That's not a joke. I walked into the bathroom once. It was late, and I looked up on the wall, and there's this massive spider that's like the size, just a little bit smaller than the size of the palm of my hand. And I have a grown man's hand, right? I don't have a little small itty bitty hand. It's not big, but like what I'm saying is, it was a big old spider, and there was a lot of those spiders, and there was tarantulas, and there was lizards getting into my room, and like. I'm not kidding. It was like I was in the jungle. And there was iguanas and there was a whole lot of things. And so that's what Belize is like a little bit, right? When I first showed up, it was harder. Because I really didn't know anyone. Right? I knew Father Tony Blunt here in Detroit. I knew Father Nicho, right? But I actually did not know who Salt was or what they were about or anything. All I knew was that the priests at Holy Redeemer were religious priests from Texas, who were based out of Texas. That's all I knew. And so I showed up to Benque, and I had the missionaries there would ask me, how do you know Salt? And I would tell them, well, they have a parish in Detroit. But I think that's true for a lot of missionaries as well as me. You don't really know who Salt is until you get involved sometimes, right? Because they're so small, right? Like some of the missionaries, I ran into these people at a college fair, and they were like, "You want to go on mission?" And I was like, "Sure." And now they're pretty involved with Salt, right? That kind of happened with me. It's sort of, I showed up. I really didn't know what Salt was like, bro. Those priests are crazy. Every religious order has their charism and their sort of way of being, if that makes any sense. And I'll quote a priest who was quoting one of their founding priests. You don't have to be crazy to be a Salt priest, but it sure does help. And that's the kind of priests you meet, and they're great priests. So I had the support of the missionaries, of the priests, first tangible. I mean, not like tangibly, but like first it was weird because I didn't actually know them, right? And so they're like, and they didn't know what to do with me because I wasn't a missionary, so I wasn't like living with the missionaries or living with the mission, right, with the priests. Like if I had been an aspirant to their community, like you would be living with the aspirants and with the priests and whatnot and stuff like that. I was just a student. And it was weird, I think, for me and for the missionaries and for my teachers, because they were missionaries from the U.S. and for my class.
This random guy from Detroit.
I was like this random guy from Southwest Detroit. And look, those priests were a blessing because they really did take care of me. I mean, because there was nobody there who knew who I was at all. Like really, nobody there had ever met me. Maybe Deacon, well, now he's Father Joseph, but Deacon Joseph, maybe I had run into him in Detroit because he was in Benque when I went there, but he had also just been in Detroit.
The one who recently got ordained?
Yes, Deacon, Father Joseph. But nobody there knew who I was. Oh, like didn't know me and I didn't know them, and it was weird. So at first it was weird. This is more of God's hands working in my life, right? So I showed up. So before going to Benque, Father Bo, who is, how do I put this? I don't know what his defined roles are, but he kind of directs the missionaries. Excuse me. He directs the missionaries. And he does a whole lot of other things for the soul community. He's always traveling, apart from also helping with the parish there in Benque. And he tells me, well, you could ask these people. He gave me the number of people. They rent rooms, or they might be able to help you find someone who rents rooms in Benque. Because it was like, I basically, like I said, I wasn't necessarily a missionary, so I knew that I could crash at the parish. Father Bo had given me that sort of confidence. It's like, if it comes down to it, Ricardo, you can stay. They call it the shack. The shack is this little garage thing behind the parish rectory. And people have stayed there before. So it's like they have beds and stuff in there, right? But he's like, you could stay there if it comes down to it. But I think it might be better for you if you wanted to like look for somewhere else. And I'm like, yeah, Father, I think I would prefer that too. So I did. I found this house that this man, friend of mine, Daniel Rivera, was renting with other men. At that point, it was just Marvin Flores, my soon-to-be roommate. And eventually, Noah Burdett from Philadelphia showed up as well. And Noah Burdett and myself became the international students for that year. And I lived with those guys, all of them close to their faith. Daniel had been a missionary. He was from Benque. Daniel was from Benque. Marvin is from Benque. Marvin was my roommate. Blessing. He was a blessing. And bless you. But like,
just cough.
Yeah. Marvin to me was like a blessing sent from God, because he's your age. Yeah, he's about your age. Yeah, he's your age. And I was just 19, a 19-year-old knucklehead who had just showed up and was living on his own for the first time in his whole life. And so he had a lot of patience with me, and I like to say I helped him grow in patience. And those 4 guys is who I lived with. And that was the hard part, was getting to Benque and not knowing anyone and having basically to start from scratch. That was tough. But as time went by, you friends, you get to know the town, you get to know the parish, you get to know the priests, you get to know your teachers, the missionaries, and as time goes by, you get used to living in a different place. I think most people who move experience that. It's just a matter of time. You go off to school, it's just a matter of time. You make friends, start going to clubs, go to mass with certain people, X, Y, and Z, become friends. The beginning is the hard part. I mean, in terms of that.
Sounds like you had a mentor that what was it? The guy you said was my age. It makes me think of some of when I was in undergrad, just some of the kind of the older guys who kind of helped us out. They were a bit wiser, and they understood what it's like to be a young teenager knucklehead. Mm-hmm. Difference being, a lot of these mentors that I had weren't practicing Catholics. So, but thanks be to God that you did have that in your life.
I like to think that Marvin is a mystic. That's just nobody knows about it.
I mean, why do you?
Oh, his way of being. Let's just leave it like that. Like there's no real way to put it. I just like to say it, like, because I feel like Marvin is a mystic and nobody knows it. Like,
so is he just that kind of guy who would randomly just be like, "Dang, you ever thought about the Holy Trinity?"
No, not like that. not like a nerdy mystic. Just like a really humble man who's like his life is prayer, going to church, and working.
Very pious guy.
Yeah.
So, what can you tell us? Like, there like any particular moment of grace that you remember from there?
From Benke?
Yeah. Any that just kind of like jumps out at you?
No. Not that there wasn't. There was a lot of moments of grace. I guess my whole journey in Benke Viejo. Everybody calls it just Benke, right? Was a whole experience. Pinpointing one particular moment is kind of hard. Just a lot of little moments that add up. Really, for the most part, just I'm sure I know there's big moments, but I can't like put them to my mind right now. So maybe it's just really it's like the collection of little moments of grace.
Thank you, Ricardo. We're gonna now jump into talking about Saint Augustine, and I'm gonna read his biography, and then you and I we're just gonna kind of reflect on his life, what we learned from him, and then continue this conversation.
Oui, monsieur.
Huh?
Oui, monsieur.
What does that mean?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What is that, French?
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, we got Saint Anne there, so we miss you. Okay. I thought you said we'll miss you. I'm like,
no, dude.
Oh, I'm not leaving anywhere.
Oui, monsieur.
Okay. Okay. One of the world's best known sinners turned saint is Saint Augustine of Hippo, whose feast we celebrate on August 28th. Famously, his mother, Saint Monica, prayed for him for 17 years before his conversion, and his is the famous prayer, "Lord, give me chastity and continence, but not yet." From the time he was 16 years old, Saint Augustine led an immoral life. He had a child out of wedlock, embraced heretical teachings, and was even a thief. He was, in fact, raised in the Catholic faith, but never baptized until later in life, a common practice in the 4th century, later that he preached against. Upon his conversion back to the faith in his 30s, Saint Augustine admitted in his famous memoir, The Confessions, "I lost myself among a multiplicity of things, and I stank in thine eyes, pleasing myself, and desirous to please in the eyes of men." Born on November 13th, 354 AD, in the town of Tagaste in North Africa, Saint Augustine had one parent who was a saint, but his father, Patricius, was another story. Patricius was a hot-tempered pagan who only converted shortly before his death due to the holy witness of his wife, Monica. The couple had 2 other children, Navigius and Perpetua, who later became abbess of a religious community for women founded by Saint Augustine. Saint Augustine excelled in rhetoric and taught the subject for 9 years in Tagaste in Carthage. He was drawn to all the attractions of the city life and prided himself on being first in everything he did. He began an illicit relationship with a woman, who then bore him a son, Adiatus, in 372. At one point, his mother, distraught about his life, was famously consoled by Bishop and future Saint Ambrose, who declared, "The son of so many tears could not perish." Saint Augustine moved to Rome in 383, and then to Milan, where he continued to teach. In Milan, he was influenced by Bishop Ambrose's preaching, and the Holy Spirit began to work within him. Nevertheless, he persisted in sin, recalling in the Confessions, The enemy held my will, and of it he made a chain with which he fettered me fast. Out of a perverse will, he created wicked desire or lust. My yielding to lust created habit, and habit, unresisted, created a kind of necessity, by which, as by links fastened to one another, I was kept close, shackled in cruel slavery. I had not the excuse I claimed earlier to have, when I delayed serving thee, because I had not yet certainly discovered thy truth. Now I knew it, yet I was still fettered. One day during his 32nd year, everything changed. While despairing of God's mercy and prayer, Saint Augustine suddenly heard a childlike voice repeating, "Take reed, take reed." Realizing this was of divine origin, he turned to the scriptural letters of St. Paul, reading at random until his eyes fell upon the following passage: "Not in revelling and drunkenness, not in debauchery and licentiousness, not in quarreling and jealousy. Instead, put on the Lord Jesus Christ, and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires." Immediately transformed, scales falling from his eyes like St. Paul, St. Augustine sought out his mother and rejoiced. Shortly thereafter, he was baptized by Bishop Ambrose. Incidentally, St. Augustine's son, Adiatus, passed away at 17. It is thought that his mother possibly entered a convent. Visiting the city of Hippo in 391, St. Augustine was ordained to the priesthood by Bishop Valerius. Upon the latter's death in 395, he was chosen to succeed him as bishop. An incredible homilist, almost 100 of St. Augustine's sermons are preserved. Filled with charity, they also burned with truth. He tirelessly worked to expose and expel heretical teachings of his day and was a true shepherd of souls. He assisted at church councils and wrote many important works, with the Confessions and the City of God being his most renowned. The Doctor of Grace, as he is reverently titled, passed away at age 76 on August 28, 430. He was canonized and declared a Doctor of the Church in 1303 by Pope Boniface VII. Saint Augustine of Hippo, pray for us. Ricardo, anything that stood out to you about his biography?
Jeez, man. Yeah, what stood out to me was you said rhetoric. Because I studied liberal arts, and rhetoric is one of the 7 liberal arts.
I kind of messed up that word because I think I said rhetoric and rhetoric, but what is that?
Rhetoric is a study of speech, of giving speeches, of speaking publicly. To put it like bluntly, yeah, it's just like to not have to define it super much, but yeah, that's all rhetoric is the study of speech, of speaking publicly, of giving speeches and teaching. There's a reason why he gave great homilies is because he was a great rhetorician. He was good at rhetoric, which is why he taught it, and therefore his homilies were good. I mean, you know what I'm saying, right? Like, he was good at speaking. That's what rhetoric is, and that stood out to me because I studied it a lot. I studied it as part of the 7 liberal arts, and I probably should have been. You know, I had a bigger devotion to Saint Augustine when I was studying rhetoric and trying to get through classes. That's what was like the first thing that stood out to me, right? It's a hard story.
It's a hard what?
It's a hard story because he was enslaved and then he was set free. That story is like hardcore. It's real.
Well, what do you know about Saint Augustine that you could share with us?
Anything more than what you just shared? Probably not much. Other than I have read from him, I just can't remember what, because I read so much in school. You know, sometimes it's just like, I read this. I can't remember exactly what it was all about. I would just say this about St. Augustine and the rest of the church fathers. I think we need to familiarize ourselves a lot more because they, like Saint Augustine, they helped to fight heresy. They helped to clarify the faith. And those heresies that Saint Augustine fought against and that so many different saints fought against, they're still here. They're disguised, but they're still here. We don't call them the same thing anymore, but I mean, we do call them the same thing. They're heresy. And sometimes they're actually very specific heresies that have been around since 700 AD, 300 AD, right?
Give us an example.
Oh boy. I feel like I'm in class again. Oh, come on, man. That's not fair. Okay, the idea that Jesus isn't God. That's heresy. That's heresy, right? There were plenty of Christians who were like, no, Jesus wasn't God. Jesus was some superhuman. And that was before the Protestant Reformation, right? And so it's like those heresies continue to exist and they're still heresy. That's just one example of saying like Jesus isn't God. He's just some sort of superhuman. He's like God's chosen one, but he's not God himself, like God per se. That's heresy. That would be a heresy. So like in terms of Saint Augustine, I think we really need to read. I haven't read his Confessions. Probably should. But I have read from him and from other fathers of the church. We need to read those guys. Like we need to read what they wrote so that we can recognize the world we live in. It's nothing new. The lies of the world today are not new lies. Most of the time, I don't think they're new lies. I just think we forgot the truth and we don't continue to teach or learn the truth. And so the lies that we have today may seem like they're new. For the most part, I don't think they are.
Well, I've had the Book of Confessions for years, and when it comes to books, sometimes I'll buy them and they'll just stay there for a minute. But Confessions is one of those that I had the opportunity to little by little read. I still have, I'd say maybe like 100 pages left to finish it. But like reading his life, like some of the things that he was involved as a youth. It said he had a kid at 16 years old, but he was also kind of like into a lot of what today we would consider New Age. So he would follow astrology. He would be very big on a lot of things that were occult. And I think a lot of people they just hear, oh, he was a big sinner, but like, no, he was into some like very dark stuff. And his mother, who wept for him for a good reason. Any mother would weep for her child who is lost, but like this kid was, you can almost say he was in a whole different.
He was gone.
And the reason I bring that up is because I mean in our own communities, like you'll see people that they're like, oh, what's your zodiac sign? Oh, you should go get tarot card readings. And unfortunately, in Santos,
que te hagan una limpia.
There's a lot
es que te hicieron una brujería y tienes que ir con el brujo.
There's a lot of santeria and there's a lot of evil. And you were mentioning how these heresies have been around for a long time. And in Saint Augustine's time, people that are like, oh, we will tell you your future. So he was exposed to those kinds of stuff. He was involved in those kinds of stuff. And yet he still followed God. Yeah.
So you think I should read the Confessions?
I would. I will say that book for me was intense.
It's intense.
In terms of like philosophy, in terms of, and I'm sure you studied all these guys, so you'll understand it a little bit better. But I would consider him a poet. So when you called yourself a type of artistic connoisseur or something, when you read his stuff, I think you will appreciate it because the way he writes it's very philosophical, but it's also like someone who is in love expressing himself to his creator. So would I recommend it? I believe so.
Okay. Yeah, because what you describe sounds hard. like not hard as in difficult, but like intense. I know.
Well, like what kind of stuff were you reading when you were in school? Because you mentioned
no, the Confessions is not. it doesn't sound like it's a more philosophical word or like straight up teaching, right? If you're like, this is heresy, this is why, right? Like I read a lot of the Summa Theologia.
So like academic.
Yeah, academic stuff. But not all of it was academic, but yeah, not all of it was academic. Just that when you read Plato and Aristotle, they are strictly talking about philosophical things. There's no theology about anything in there because they're looking at the world only from philosophical terms. But something like this is totally different. This is like part autobiography, like part. This is, I mean, a doctor of the church.
Again, maybe I'm not the best to like explain the book, but like I remember it just like it has layers to it. When you start off, you're starting to understand who is Saint Augustine, who is this sinner, and he's always explaining, no man, I was in the trenches, I was in sin, I was a slave to it, and then he goes like unpacking encounter with God. And then there's, for me, one of my favorite moments in the book is when he explained who his mother was. And it's so beautiful because he essentially talks about how hard of a father he was, his dad, and how saintly of a woman. And like when you hear how he talks about her, it's like, dang, this. And then as you progress in the book, I'm gonna be honest. At some point, I'm like, I can't read this. This is like way above my head. Because the last thing I read, there was a point where he's like, yeah, there's past time, and then there's present time, and then there's future time, but there's no such thing as the past. There's only the present. And so like, and then he starts talking about.
I've been there. I know that feeling.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting book, and I can tell you that. Not everybody can get through it. Obviously, I'm no expert, and
me neither, dude. I have an associate's. I like skimmed things, man. Like,
but you've read like Plato, right?
Yeah.
So like
that was easy to read Plato. I mean, well, I take it back. It was not easy. It was not easy.
So I would say if you can read Plato and understand Plato, like, have you read the Republic?
I've read chunks. Okay. So like I've read books from the Republic.
Because fun fact, when I got Confessions, I think I got it around the same time when I got Republic, and both of those books were just chilling there in my room for a minute. But then finally, I had the opportunity to read the Republic. Anyways, going back to Augustine. One of his famous quotes, "Our hearts are restless until they rest in you." For those who maybe haven't experienced that kind of rest. Well, first of all, have you ever felt like you were able to rest in Jesus?
Yeah. But I will say that finding rest in Christ has been difficult for me. But there have been moments where, yeah, I think I should be able to say yes. Right? Like I want to say no, but like I think the answer is yes. Sometimes it's hard to remember.
Right. And what can you say? Could you explain it? Describe it.
When you walk out of confession, that's the only real time. I mean, that's not the only time, but that is like the most marked time where most of us have felt that, right? Out of a good confession, even out of a rushed confession, but if you were honest, right? Even if you went to confession with a priest, because you had that feeling to go, and you just went with that priest, you didn't have a chance to do a real proper examination of conscience, but you're like, Holy Spirit, help me out here, and you left that confession better. Those are the moments where you find rest in Christ. I mean, those are the moments where I have felt rest in Christ the strongest. Right? There have been other times in adoration where I have felt rest in Christ. Markedly, perhaps, I went to a Steubenville conference when I was 15, and that was a big shift in my spiritual life. Big shift in my spiritual life. I went to the confession of my life, right? And it's like Christ's peace is there. I mean, the demons are still there. They're still bothering you even more, but Christ's peace is there. Whenever you have that feeling like, dang, I wish I could go to heaven like right now because I know I'm in a state of grace, that's Christ's peace. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. And I guess my other question is, what do you think it means, or how do you describe a heart that is restless?
No, you asked me that question, and I smile. This heart is because my heart is restless, and I know exactly what you mean. And I don't know if I can put it in words because I don't wish to out myself in front of your audience, but y'all know what it means to have a restless heart. You don't need anybody to tell you. I don't think, for the most part, we need someone to tell us. Those great stories of conversion, the saints look back and they're like, hey, I had nothing. I was a slave to sin. I don't know that. I mean, I think your conscience usually knows that. You can tune your conscience out or disfigure it, right? But for the most part, most of us know what that's like. What's that like? Ricky, I'm sure you know, I'm sure I know, I'm sure all your listeners know, and it's just something missing. That's always what people say. Something missing, right? Sometimes you try to fill that void with your girlfriend, right? Even in chaste ways. Let's just see, even in the best circumstances, right? Like, no, that void that's missing it's a God-sized hole. And those aren't my words; those are other people's words, right? When you have even good things and you're not happy, that's a restless heart. When you have bad things and you're absolutely miserable, that's a restless heart. When you're smiling, but the smile is fake and you know it, but other people don't, that's a restless heart. You know what I'm saying? What a restless heart is. We all have one at some point in our life. It's hard to find peace for some because of what they have lived through sometimes. Others have peace in a restless way or in a not so peaceful way. That makes any sense? Have different saints who have been through decades of like no spiritual graces, like no beautiful feelings when they're praying, but they're praying. And you could say they have rest in Christ because they have confidence in Christ and they have not faltered, even though they have no magical sort of feeling of an embrace of that feeling should be there. You know what I'm saying? Like, it should be there. And it is, even when you have none of that consolation, even in desolation, be a sort of peace. If you stick with Christ. If that makes any sense. I know I'm speaking out of my ears. Does that make any sense, Ricky?
No, I think you put it very well when you told the audience, you guys know what a restless is. And you may not always think about it and ponder it and be like, man, like, why am I so agitated? I think very like, and it doesn't even just have to be when you're in sin that you feel that's like you said, your conscience telling you, and then you could say a concrete, objective way, you're in sin. You're in sin. You need Jesus. But even those who are in a state of grace, who might have their girlfriend, their kids, like everything is going well, like, and yet there's still something restless within them.
Their wife and their kids.
Their wife and their kids. What did I say?
You said girlfriend and kids, and I'm like, Ricky, no.
Well, there are those some in our city, okay?
You know what I meant.
Yeah.
When I said girlfriend, I meant girlfriend before the kids, you know?
Because, like, I'm just saying, Saint Augustine, he was not married, was he?
No.
He had a girlfriend and he had a kid.
No, look, so those of you out here,
which I
am not judging you.
I am promoting. Go get married.
I am not judging you if you have a child, if you have your girlfriend. I'm not judging you because I've done worse things. Well, like I've been in your boat, and I'm still in a boat. I'm not gonna say which boats, because that's between me and my priest. But it's like I'm not judging you guys. I'm just
important clarification. Thank you.
Important clarification.
Café con Santos promotes the sacraments here, and one of those, the sacrament of marriage. But as I was saying, I mean, at some point, you mentioned that we're all missionaries. Another way to put it, we're all pilgrims on the way to heaven, and ultimately, our final rest will be when we are with God in heaven. And so, our hearts, in a way, in this life, they're gonna be, they're longing for the maker of the universe. And I'm sure in classes you're taught about this concept that you can't find your fulfillment in the things that are created, right? Like this coffee that I have, this podcast that I'm making, as good as they may be, all of those things, they don't fulfill that hole that we have in our hearts. But at the same time, in this life, while we're still here, He gives us the grace to rest in Him. And so I guess you were mentioning, like, Father, I just want to go to the jungle. Like,
my heart was restless.
What do you think changed that shift? Or is it still like that?
It's hard for me to believe it, but I've been told that I have more peace, which is weird. If you think about what I just said, it's like, Ricky, what you're telling me you don't know you have more peace? Because I had a Father Tony. He looked at me once when he ran into me at a party. Not comida, put it more accurately. Like, Ricardo, you have a lot more peace with you. Really? Why hasn't anybody told me? I don't feel more peaceful, but I guess I don't want to run away to the jungle anymore. But I still have yet to confront the jaguar. Perhaps. I've confronted a lot of jaguars, but not one or two that are still there, that are still clawing at me. You know what I mean, right? Because I've known you a little bit, and I heard your podcast with like Arturo, and I know what you know. I know you know what I mean when I'm talking about the jaguar, when I'm talking about evil, right? And it's because the devil's real. So, but putting the devil aside, because I'll let him take our peace currently, I don't want to run away to the jungle anymore. What I want to do is one day build a house out on Lake Superior, but that's different. Because I would like sometimes I still feel like I want to run away to somewhere quiet, because that's how the world is. It's full of noise, right? But I guess I have found. Christ found me. I'll put it that way.
No, you had mentioned that when you were in Belize, there was this JP2. You called it a providential moment, but I don't think you ever necessarily explained why it was providential.
Okay. Think about it like this. I have no idea what to do with my life. Priest tells me, you can do this. I tell my mom, some other trusted people, they're like, go. You're not doing anything with your life. What? I didn't expect that response. I was like, no, mijo, no te vayas a la jungla. What's wrong with you? You know? My mom was like, no, vete. What are you doing here? Nothing productive with yourself? It's about time you do something. She didn't say those. I mean, like, yeah, like I got that reaction from people. And I'm like, you know what? They're not going to hold me back. Ya que? That was like, if somebody's going to hold me back, it's going to be them. Not like hold me back, but like keep me, like, you know, like be that other voice to say no. But they were like, get out of here. And I'm like, well, ya que? So like, who does go on, who buys a one-way ticket to Belize and never looks back? I don't know why I did it. Like it doesn't, that's how desperate I was. That's how crazy, that's how You know what I'm saying? That's how
Restless.
I was. But I'm like, I'll do anything to get out of this. I bought a one-way ticket to Belize and never looked back. The school providential because I needed to learn. I needed to study. I needed to work my gift of X, Y, and Z, my gifts, right? You don't work your gifts, they just end up faltering. Like I was good in high school as a student. I needed to keep studying. It would be wrong to not keep studying, at least at that point. Right now, that might be true still, but I need to work. That's a different story. So the school was a liberal arts school in the Catholic tradition, Catholic teachers, and in the Catholic faith. 1000% Catholic school, right? The chancellor of the school is Father Bo. He's always there. We're always having school masses. We're always having reconciliation services. The teachers are almost part Catholic. The ones who aren't are not there to dissuade you from the Catholic faith, right? That school just helped me to grow as a human being. Like the Lord put that in my way because that's what I needed. That's why I said it was like providential. That's why I said it was God's hand working. Because you don't just go do something like that. Does that make any sense? God opens those kind of doors. And God opened that door. And I walked through it. I can't believe I walked through it, but I did.
It's because I'm barely starting to understand what you mean by providential. Because I think when you examine the path in our spiritual life, there are different stages in the spiritual life, and one of the first stages is when the person is barely trying to let go of sin from their life, and how the devil usually entices them with pleasures of alcohol, X, Y, and Z, and how many times in our city, specifically in Southwest Detroit, there are many people that are young, that are restless, that want to go to the jungle. And what does the Jaguar offer them? Not confessions, not Belize with praise. And so the fact that he just planted you in a whole different place with a group of friends, with a group of priests to study, how good is that?
Yeah, I know it was a blessing. I know I am lucky. I am very grateful for the opportunity to have been there. I am very grateful for my father's blessing. My father, I'm referring to God the Father. By my father's blessing to go to de ir a Belize, a otro país. And that's not the only blessing that came with that. There are other things and opportunities that I don't have to talk about that happened because I went there, that are God's hand, because it is pure generosity that I was there, and other things that happened. Pure generosity from other people. And you know that kind of pure generosity comes from God. It does not come from anywhere else. The devil can't give you anything. God can. And when God gives you those things, you have to realize it's God's hand working. You don't have to hear voices. You don't have to see a physical hand like in the Bible. You know how there's the physical hand that's like writing on the wall, and that once, I can't remember what story it is, but the people aren't converting, and so God starts writing on the wall. There's a hand, but he knows what it's saying, and so they call the one prophet, right? You know what I'm talking about?
No, I haven't heard this one yet.
It's a whole story in the Bible, dude. Anyways, you don't have to see a physical hand writing on the wall. You don't have to hear an actual voice, but God's working. Sometimes it's your girlfriend. Sometimes it's your boyfriend. Straight up. I've had people tell me, my boyfriend helped me so much to get closer to my faith. Well, not like I've had people tell me, more like I've tangentially seen it happen and heard it happen. My boyfriend, my girlfriend, or someone's girlfriend, someone's boyfriend is pulling them closer. That's God's hand. It doesn't have to be a priest. It could be anything.
I agree. So here's another quote. This is my favorite quote. One of my favorite quotes.
Let's have it.
And it's from Saint Augustine. To fall in love with God is the greatest romance. To seek Him, the greatest adventure. To find Him, the greatest human achievement. What do you think for you has been one of the greatest adventures so far with God? Or are you still yet to get into that part of your story?
I think Belize was a warm-up. And I don't mean to say that next thing you know, I'm going to be doing all sorts of crazy, like
going to Japan.
Yeah. No, like, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, like, Belize was batting practice. And it was coaching. And it was growth. Necessary growth. Spiritual life is real. You can be a spiritual infant and be 90, right? You can be a spiritual adult and be like San Joselito Sanchez is real, be 14, right? For me, Belize was necessary. It was like the necessary growing pains, and I'm still going through them. So, great adventure. Dude, I'm still alive. Like, that's enough. You know, right now my adventure is going to work, waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning, and like, and it's not miserable. Like, I don't mean to make it sound miserable for those of you who work in construction and people who know people who work in construction. Construction is not a bad job. Working with your hands and working, like, people have a very big misunderstanding of what construction actually is, I think. That right now is like my current adventure, helping with my youth group. That's an adventure. As much as I think I'm still 19, I'm not. And I realize they're 13, 14, 15, and they're going through a whole lot of weird things. And they're like, crazy. Wow, that's how a 15-year-old thinks. I'm like, wait a minute. I was 15 like 5 years ago. Wink, wink, 5 years ago. So the adventure, that Belize was a big adventure, but everything's been a big adventure.
To be fair, you're still...
Yeah. Like, adventure is there. I mean, it just, you have to... Adventure with God, adventure for God, adventure to God is there. It doesn't have to look like Belize, right? It doesn't have to look like jumping off of a 30-foot cliff into a waterfall, which I did. That was fun. That's adventure. That's not adventure. Adventure is when you do something totally different, and getting closer to God is always going to be, in some way or another, very different, totally different to what we're used to. Because he is, you could say, he's infinitely mysterious to us, right? This would mean it's infinitely an adventure to get to know God more. That's one way to put it.
So you mentioned the youth group. Have you ever been involved with an adult ministry?
Just at my own youth group. Right, growing up, I started going to my youth group at my parish at St. Hedwig's with Arturo. First got there, Arturo was not yet leading our youth group, but soon he would be. So, like, soon when I first got there, soon after, he started directing and helping and guiding, and I was there for that. But outside of just a couple of things, I helped my mom once twice with her RCIA courses. I helped. She will separate. My mom teaches OCIA at St. Hedwig's. So she separates sometimes their teenagers from her adults, because teenagers and adults are different people. They need to hear different things, right? So I've helped with them, and I've helped at my youth group as a youth, and now as an adult. I try to go there. I'm not very good at it. I'm not very good at being consistently there. So I say I help at my youth group, but I'm like, I show up. You know, I show up, and I'm another adult there who can relate to them. If that makes any sense. But that's my experience with youth ministry. I'm not a youth minister by any. I mean, I'm not directing you. I'm there and I'm helping. I think it was St. John Paul II who said, it's like the best minister for young people is young people, right? Sometimes you just need a big brother, right? I mean, that's how I see it. Like, I'm those kids' big brother. Right?
I think that's fair, because, I mean, I got to remind myself, you're still 22. Like, when I was 22, still at Michigan in college, probably barely coming back to the faith, barely, and nowhere near on your level of growth with the Lord. But even then, my adventure was only the beginning. And I mean, we're like 8 years apart. And you were saying how you look at the kids in youth group and you're like, wait a minute, these kids are these are youngins. Like, I'm like, I could be.
You say that about me.
No, I'm pretty close to being a dad. So like, I could still say I'm like a big brother. But at this point, I'm more like
El tío.
An uncle, or just someone that is an adult, like an actual adult that is there to.
That's how it is, Ricky. You think I'm not an actual adult?
You're still in the young. You're barely in the young adult category. I know. The thing about me is I'm exiting out of that young adult category.
No. Right. Hey. John Paul II, when he started World Youth Day, was thinking about adults 18 to 35. You're still a young adult.
I thought you were gonna say no. It's important just to be joven de corazón.
No, I wasn't gonna say that. No way, bro. No, I mean, that's true the right ways, but sometimes we shouldn't use that as an excuse to just be young forever.
So I think we're about to be wrapping up soon. But I think one of the things that I wanted to ask was, I guess, going back to your experience and how it's kind of pretty unique compared to a lot of young adults in Southwest Detroit. Unfortunately, young adult ministry in our communities is not as active, or it's not as fruitful. It doesn't have as many people. There are many that are adults that have like MAUs, they have their men and women's groups. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to young adults, it's like, at least what I've seen is that space is never as full, sadly. What pitch would you give to the young adult listening to this podcast for why they should be more active in their faith?
It's the same thing I tell. I've come to a conclusion. Hopefully, I'm right. No, I've heard this from someone else, so it's not my conclusion. But the church, as in the church militant, right? As in the church, as in the people who are still alive, is everyone who is baptized, from infants to the old people who are passing away, who are in that time of their life where they're just older, right? In their golden years, sort of. At that point, sort of passing on wisdom. And when you're just an infant, right? The two extremes. When you're passing on your wisdom, when you know you don't have much time left, you're just sort of living your years in peace, and helping with your wisdom, and you're an infant. The church is that big. I mean, the church militant is both extremes and everything in between. So to young people and to everyone else who might be listening, everyone is the church. So that infant is not the future of the church. Yes, in practical terms, he might be a future priest, right? In practical terms. But that baby is part of the church militant. So is that youth who's in your youth group. And we need to realize that. So that's what I would say to young people who are listening, the young adults my age and Ricky's age who are listening. I don't know who listens to your podcast exactly. Everyone's a church. Everyone is a church. And you're responsible for your faith the moment you have the ability to make decisions, which is from the time you're about, responsible for your faith is a strong word. Perhaps let's say you're responsible for your soul a lot earlier than you think you are. Your soul is real. Your soul is permanent. And you're responsible for it. Nobody else is. You're 8. Yeah, your parents are still teaching you things, right? Your parents are still responsible for guiding you. You're 16, you're a grown person, right? Pretty much. I mean, in the spiritual life, you have people guiding you, but you make your decisions. You have your passions and you have your, to say it bluntly, your hormones, right? Your teenageness, but you're making your own choices. Nobody's making you do nothing. So, you want to do drugs? That's your choice. You're choosing that. Nobody's forcing you to do anything. You want to go to mass? That's your choice. That's what I would say. It's just everyone's a church, and we need to embrace whatever state we're in. I'm young. I'm 22. I can do what I can do. I ain't 60. I'm not a priest. I'm not a religious brother. I'm not married. I can do what I can do. You're 14. You can serve as an altar boy. You're 13. You can be in the choir, maybe, depending. It depends, right? Do we need more places for youth? Yes. We do. Let's make them. I'm helping in a little way. I'm sure you're helping. And if you're just a young person out there and you don't have a space, forget it. Don't worry about not having a space for young people. Just do what you can. What you can. All I would say.
And yeah, I think you gave him a pitch of, dude, you're the church, and you've been sinning, so repent and start doing stuff. I think that sounds like what your mom told you when she was like, "You're not doing anything with your life." That's what you're telling them right now.
Yeah, it's like, what do you want me to tell you? Oh, es que ustedes son hijos de Dios, and es que ustedes son unos angelitos. Mentiras, bro. I know, because I know myself, that by the time you're 8, you are no longer an angel. ¿Cómo se dicen? Somos mañosos desde muy chiquillos, ¿ok? No, eso lo tenemos que admitir y aceptar desde ahorita. No matter what age you're at, ya tienes maña. O sea, you're already... It's hard to put in English. You're already clever. And in bad ways. It's like you already know how to steal cookies from the bakery. Like I did that. It's like you already know how to steal stuff. You already know how to do this. It's like... Can't play dumb.
And I think you pitched it properly when you said we all got a soul, and so I think I appreciate that about you, that you are a blunt person, and sometimes you say the things that sometimes people are afraid to say, and I think someone might need to hear that sometimes you have people that are like, "No, we need you, man," like, and sometimes there are people that are like, "We don't need you. God doesn't need you. God doesn't need me. He doesn't need Café con Santos." But He chooses to allow us to be used as instruments.
And He wants us.
And so I think that the invitation, maybe as harsh, that came from Ricardo, here from one Ricardo, and here's another Ricardo. So we will both say, just get involved. I think I'm exiting out of this young adult era of mine, and you're barely entering into that. So I would pray, Ricardo, that you use your gifts, and I know you're still kind of discovering those, and I know you've been through some things that a lot of people your age have not had to go through, and in many ways, I respect you for that, because it's not easy to lose a family member at such a young age, and so I pray that the Lord may use you in this age in the church, whether that's in Southwest Detroit or whether He's calling you to go on a different mission. And I didn't mention this to the audience earlier, but where I met you was in a nonprofit organization. We won't mention which one, just because of
prudence.
We'll just leave it at that. But I remember your zeal and your joy and your strength. Always a man that likes to ride bikes, and so just keep being you, man. I think one of the quotes that Blessed Carlo Acuti's soon-to-be saint is that we're all born as originals, but sadly a lot of us die as photocopies. So I pray that with time you grow in prudence and strength, and that you'll be the saint that God made you to be. So
thank you, Rick.
Yeah, and then for the listeners, just God can use anybody. Like Saint Augustine had a kid out of wedlock. He was deep in the occult. He was a very sinful man, and yet God turned him into one of the greatest saints that we have in the church. So if he could do it with me, if he could do it with Ricky, he could do it with you. So Ricardo, I like to close off these episodes by inviting the listener to close us off in prayer. And then I will look at the audience. I'll invite them to pray the rosary. You'll say, pray the rosary. And then together, the third time, we will both say, pray. So if you could close us off in prayer.
Puro. Okay. Be prepared for the half-hour homily. I mean, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for, as they like to say, a next day of life, another day of life. Help us to be saints. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Amen. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope that you guys were able to take a couple of nuggets from it, and that wherever you guys are, you enjoy the rest of this day. If you would like to support the mission of Café con Santos, you can do so by liking and subscribing to this YouTube channel. You could share these videos with your family and friends. But most importantly, keep us in your prayers. Wherever you are, continue to experience the love and the mercy of Christ. And please, 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 always remember, pray the rosary.
Pray the rosary and pray the rosary.